Hey, welcome again. This is Scott Monkern to one of my reviews. I got this in just this week. I played it once and I've actually played it a couple of times, and I want to do a review of Fantahzee, Hoardes, and Heroes by AEG. It's actually the game is by Ryan Miller. It's produced by AEG. There you go. So let's go ahead and talk about the game. So Fantahzee, Hoardes and Heroes, that's what it's called, is a card game with a dice component to it. So you've got a combination of cards you're going to play that are adventurers and heroes, and dice as a push your luck mechanic. Thematically, what we're talking about here is the game is that you have evil creatures that are invading the town with boss monsters in charge of them, and then you, in each of the players, is building a team of adventurers who are going to go out and fight and kill the bad creatures. You build your team, you go out and kill a bunch of creatures, wash, rinse, repeat. Ultimately, you kill all three boss monsters. You hope you do. And when you have, the game is over, and whoever has acquired the most and accumulated the most experience points over the course of the game is the one who wins. So you've got a card game in combination with a push your luck dice mechanic, and we'll talk more about that when we get to play style. So let's talk a little bit about the art in this game. Now, first of all, when you look at this game and you look at the box cover, there are no qualms about it. Here is that it definitely does not have a serious, deep, heavy feel to it. We're definitely talking about kind of a comedic, cartoony level game. We're not seeing dark, heavy ones here. In fact, if you look here, there's a card in here which talks about this isn't an empty space, and there's a joke on it, which is kind of an insert in the deck. So when you look at the box, it's intended to have a heavy kind of a heavy, cartoony, comedic flavor. And if you look at the cards, here's one of them. You have very similar flavor to it. It feels very comic and very comedic. It kind of reminds me a lot of some of the, now I'm not a big fan of Munchkin, but it reminds me a lot of kind of the Munchkin cards. It also reminds me a lot of the Smash Up cards. It has a very comedic flavor to it. And for this type of game, this is appropriate, is that you want funny comedic cards. And there are a whole bunch of different types of cards. You'll see here's a Forge Titan right like there. Let's pull up some of the monsters and see what the monsters look like. Let me pull one up here. Here's one of the monsters. Here's a Lord Tentacler. He looks like this. There, we'll put him up. See how close we can get him and still stay in focus. Definitely good, kind of funny cards and a lot of fun, and a whole bunch of them, by the way. So that's the game. That's the artwork. Definitely appropriate for the theme. If you're looking for a deep, heavy, dark, morose game, definitely not what you're going to find here. But if you're looking for a fun, light game, definitely the way to go. So I've been doing reviews now for a couple of weeks, and I realize I've been using the phrase the manual, and really, that's from my tech industry background, really the rulebook, and I'm going to start calling them the rulebook from here on out, but I thought I would keep it consistent for now and talk about the manual. So here is the rulebook. We're now going to call them rulebooks, not manuals. First of all, on the back, we have a quick reference card. Now, I will tell you that, honestly, this should have been a player card, a player reference card that everybody got a copy of. I'm going to stress again, player reference cards are critical. Yet another game that I found where there are no player reference cards. So, guys, do player reference cards. It makes life so much easier because we're moving towards the land of iconography. Now, when we go inside the manual, we have a table of contents, always a good thing, and an introduction explaining what the theme is about, and yes, we have a components page. I'm always glad to see components pages. We see that we have the rulebook, 4 tokens. They do not, in fact, have a first player token. They have a last player token. That should tell you that this is supposed to be a comedic game. We have 26-sided dice. We have a Horde deck, and we have a Hero deck. The Horde deck are the bad monsters, and it tells you how many you have of each. We also have town cards. If you have town cards that get destroyed, bad things happen to you. Then it goes on and talks about the cards. Also really good. Tells you about the cards and what they mean. So it says, this is an action card, this is what it does, so on and so forth. They show you hero cards and what they do. And then they talk about horde cards and what they do, which are the big bad monsters. They got level 1s and level 2s. We've got treasure cards, give you cool stuff. We've got town cards. When towns get destroyed or town items get destroyed, bad things happen. And then setup. how to set up the game. I think this is a really cool idea. Well, it's not new to them. I've seen it all over the place. I think the first game I saw it in was Pandemic because it was the first kind of the new games I played. It tells you how to set up the decks. There are actually 5 decks you set up for the 5 different monsters, sets of monsters you're going to fight. You set up the town and the hero deck. It does a really good job of explaining how to set up those decks. Then it goes into, we're now on page 12, how to play the game. So it's got a lot of setup at the beginning, but I think it's time well spent. Plus, it's really big print. It's really, really easy to read. It says, okay, what are you going to do on your turn? You've got an action phase, a dice phase, a horde phase, and an end phase. And the action phase is basically you can play 2 action cards and 2 things, and so on and so forth. And then the rest of the manual takes you through it. And we'll talk about the gameplay and a little bit about how it works. Tells you how the game ends, and then it tells you how scoring works. It's got some optional rules here at the end, things like activating heroes, how that works, how Steam works, because Steam's a special one, using treasures, how damage works, so on and so forth. So generally a pretty good manual. I'm pretty happy with it. As I said, yet again, no player reference cards. Cannot stress enough how important it is to have player reference cards in a game. But in general, the manual is pretty good. So the theme for this game is medieval fantasy, and comedic medieval fantasy, kind of that cartoonish medieval fantasy that we think about when we think about video games. Not so much that deep, heavy Tolkien-esque medieval fantasy, but something kind of a lighter, kind of more comedic, kind of funnier medieval fantasy theme. And I think that this game does a really excellent job of communicating that particular theme. Both in the manual and the cards, that particular theme comes out really well. And the play style is deeply ingrained into that particular theme. The assembling a party, seeing who's willing. Now the way you do is who's willing to fight today is by the roll of the dice, and then combat, even though deterministic is still kind of a cool thing. So I think that thematically it works really well. It's kind of one of the better games I've seen lately in terms of comedic level themes. I've actually seen a couple lately that have been really good, where they've handled the comedy level pretty well. The other one I reviewed was really well done thematically, but ultimately the game was designed so you didn't care whether you won or lost. It was about playing the game. This one, definitely winning or losing is important. You want to be the winner, but the comedic elements of the game are handled really, really well in this game. So the theme, medieval fantasy comedy, light, well done. So let's talk about playing the game and how the game is played. The way the game is played is after you do everything set up, you have 5 piles of monsters, and then in a row, and then on one side you have your draw deck, on the other side you have your town. And you flip up the top card off of the deck. That's the monster in each of those 5 factions. On your turn, you draw your hand to 5 cards. You can play 2 character cards and 2 action cards on your turn. Now that doesn't activate them, it just puts them out in the available area. You apply the effect of the action cards, and then you roll dice. Now when you roll the dice, you can roll them and you can re-roll them 2 more, like Yahtzee kind of style. And then you can, when you activate characters, they require specific dice. So I'm going to pull one out here. Now, this is the really ugly one. This is the captain. He's got tons of power. He's got a combat value of 6, which is huge. He has interesting power. Well, for him, it's for every hero that's currently active, he costs 1 less to activate, but he takes actually 6 of a kind. He takes a super Yahtzee to activate. So that's one example of a hero. Let's pull one more out, see what we get. Here's a steam cannon. There you go. It has a combat value of 3, and it's a pair of dice to activate. Now, not all of them are pairs. Some of them are like 1, 2, 3, and 4, so on and so forth. But basically, you roll the dice up to 3 times, Yahtzee style, and then say, okay, what can I activate? After you've played the cards. Now, after you've activated your heroes, you then look at the board and say, what monsters can I kill with the point values that I have? You simply have to have more points in your attack than they have in defense. Now, some of the monsters have special abilities, like You look at a monster, if it has the ambush skill, if you don't kill it on your turn, it's going to come back and attack you. There are other monsters that have counterattack skills, and if you don't kill, if you attack them, they're going to attack you right back and cause damage. And there's a whole damage mechanic. In addition to that, if the monster at the end, closest to the end of the town, has not been killed, closest to town has not been killed, one of the buildings in the town gets destroyed and bad stuff happens. Now, if you kill a monster, some of them come with treasure. So if you look here, some of them, this one doesn't. Some will have treasure. It'll tell you that. And if you draw a treasure monster, you get a treasure, and the treasure have all sorts of cool things. Like here's a treasure card right here. There's level 1 monster and level 2s. The level 1. Here, the level 1 here says, because it's got a level 1, says activate, get an extra die this turn, so you can play that treasure and get an extra die, so you can get 6 dice. And activate, get 1 shield, an extra roll, and an extra die, and that's level 2 monster. So every time you kill a monster, if the monster has a treasure token on it, you get a treasure. So you basically go through your turn, you pass to the next person, they do the same thing, wash, rinse, repeat, until 3 boss monsters have been killed. Towards the bottom of each monster stack, there's a boss monster, and you have the option to kill it. So that's basically the way the game is played. It lasts about 30 minutes, 40 minutes, depending upon how many players and how quickly they kill things. That's the game in a nutshell. Quick card, dice rolling, and killing. So what did I think of this game? I really enjoyed this game, but I tend to like comedy games a lot. I like Archer Love Letter. I like some of the comedic love letters. Doomtown and some of its comedic elements I really like. Not that Doomtown is necessarily comedic, but there's definitely some comedic elements about Doomtown. I tend to like comedic level games. I like other games as well. I like them equally as well, but I do like comedic level games, and this definitely falls under kind of the comedic kind of game that I talk about. I'd call it a medium weight, maybe even a medium to lightweight game. It's pretty fast to learn. It's pretty easy to learn. Maybe not as easy as something as a love letter or a love letter or something like that, but it's definitely a pretty easy game to learn. It's a lot of fun. It doesn't have many I don't think it has any take that components that I can remember. I reviewed a lot of games recently that have had take that mechanics to them, and I've not been happy about that. I'm not a big take that kind of guy, except for Smash Up and a couple of others. And I've said that before. So, but it doesn't seem to have a lot of take that mechanics to them, which is kind of nice. So that's kind of it. It's a lot of fun, but you've got to be prepared. If you're looking for a heavy, deep, meaty, hard decision-making game, this is not the game for you. This is a game it's bigger than a pickup game. It's a little bit bigger than a pickup game. It's obviously designed to have some more expansions coming out, I'm hoping, it looks like. I'll definitely pick up those expansions when they come out. Just a lot of fun. And so, if you're looking for something great for kids, definitely if you're looking for a game for kids, like in that maybe 10 to 14-year-old range. I don't know what they actually rate it. Let's see, do they say on the box what it's rated for? They don't say. It's a lot of fun. And so my reaction, if you like comedic level games, medieval fantasy, comedy, or comics, definitely a game to pick up.